Welcome to lesson 9.3, linear relationships. So we're talking about linear relations up until now, but we're going to actually look to see how the x and the y are connected, or how two variables affect each other. So you can graph a linear relationship that's represented by a table of values. You can write that one in, or an ordered pair. So when you have those two things, right, you can graph a relationship. Graphs are all about relationships, right? How does one variable affect the other? How does x, right, give you a y? So first of all, you need to make a table of values. Now, it's important to check that the values in the table are reasonable. For example, if you're talking about people, you can't have a table of values that's like 2.5, right, or like a -4. So it's got to make sense to the context of the problem. Then you graph using the blank in the table, right? So using the ordered pairs in the table. So whenever possible, choose variables that are representative of the unknown. Alright, so what that means is that if you're looking for height, call it h. If you're looking for temperature, call it t. Right, it's a little thing, but it helps for clarity. So, right, let's talk about formulas. So formula, and I'm sure this is not the first time you've heard about formulas, or you talk about surface area and volume formulas and all sorts of things, right? So formula is a mathematical statement that represents the relationship between specific quantities. Now, an equation, again, probably not the first time you've heard that word, but a textbook definition says saying that it's a mathematical statement with two expressions that have the same value, right? There's got to be an equal sign connecting two expressions. So we've done expressions up until now. Now the equation has the equal, right? You can see the word equal is like in equation. There's got to be an equal sign. So got a couple examples below. Right, the left side is equal to the right side. Right, if you're going to draw an equal sign in between, what you're saying is that whatever x plus 2 is, right, that's exactly the same thing as 3. Alright, so let's go down here and evaluate each equation using the given variable. Now, your mathematical communication is really important in these sort of situations. Right, it should be all vertical, right, and the equal signs should line up. So what that means is that the next line, right, the equal signs will be underneath, the y will be underneath, the 5 is underneath the 5, but rather than writing 3, or rather than writing x, I'm going to write a 3. Right, and put it in nice little brackets like that. Remember that we talked about it in class, but those brackets mean to multiply. Right, so I've got 5 times 3 minus 3. Next line, the y's are equal, right? The equal signs are lined up. And I can do my BEDMAS equations now. Right, all that order of operation stuff, multiply before addition. So 5 times 3 is 15 minus 3, right? And everything's still nice and pretty lined up. 15 minus 3 is 12, and that's my answer. Right, when x is 3, y is 12. Alright, let's try the next one. So, same thing, right? Y's are lined up, equal signs are lined up. I'm going to substitute the 10 for x. Y equals -5 times +10. Answer is -15. So if x is -50, that means if x is +10, that means y is -50. Alright, so let's put it into the context of a graph. Now, really important over here, when you're making your own table of values, so that's a big difference with today's lesson, is you're not going to be given a table of values. You got to make your own. Things to keep in mind, right? Choose at least 4 different input numbers, 4 different x's, right? So you have a really good picture of what this relationship is like. If you can put in a negative, put in a negative. If it doesn't make sense, don't do it. And it's often useful to have an x equals 0 value, right? So let's give it a try. It says make a table of values for the equation and then draw the graph. Okay, So table of values, there's my x, there's my y. This one chooses our x's for us. Awesome. So I've got an x at -2, 0, 2, and 4. Right? I'm on my way to getting ordered pairs to graph. But I don't know the corresponding y yet. So, right, I'm going to use this formula to figure it out. Now, if x is -2, then, right, I'm going to substitute a -2 in for x plus 2. Right? And just like what I was doing in the previous question, 3 times -2, -6 plus 2, y equals -4. Great. So if x is -2, y is -4. I can graph that pretty easily. All right. Now what about next one? Let's say y is 0, or x is 0. So y equals 3. I'm not going to write in x. I'm going to write in a 0 plus 2. Y equals, hey, 3 times 0 is 0 plus 2, so y is 2. So that means if x is 0, according to this formula, y will be 2. Right? Look at all these ordered pairs I'm coming up with. All right, got to keep going. Let's see, y will do it when x is positive 2 this time. So again, 3 times 2 is 6 plus 2. All right, y equals 6 plus 2 is 8. So if x is 2, y is 8. Last one, right, y equals 3. Rather than writing x, I'm going to write in 4 for x because I know what it is. Plus 2, y equals 12 plus 2, y equals 14. And I've just come up with my very own table of values. Now remember, this means things. Right? These could be temperatures, it could be people, it could be countries. Right? So very important, right, that it's accurate. Now we don't know what the context of this is, so negative numbers make sense, 0 makes sense, we're good to go. Okay, so why don't you pause the video here and graph it. Okay, welcome back. Now, we haven't done much work with graphing negative numbers, so this may have been a little bit of a struggle for you to figure out how to set up your graph. But if you have questions, please ask in class about graphing negative numbers, right? But check your answers to what you see on the screen here. Looks like we have a nice linear relationship, right? So let's turn the page over and try the next one. Now, here we go. This is not a lot of information, right? You have a formula, y is equals x minus 2, and it looks like you're supposed to set up, right, some sort of chart, right, or table of values, and then a graph. So this is going to be one of the questions that you need to do on your own for homework, right? So just to get you started, right, you're going to pick some x values, right? So you're going to pick some x's. Remember that, right, zeros are okay, negatives are okay, right? If you want to use a decimal, go for it, but good range of x. Plug the x numbers into your formula, right? Get your ordered pairs, pick a good graph, or at a good scale, and you're off to go. So you can check the answers for this on the next day's website. Let's go down and look at a word problem, though. Let's do this one together. So it says, you can buy work gloves from the Fix-It Store's website according to the formula C equals 5G plus 2. Right? So we've got a great equation there, 2 variables, right? 2 unknowns in our equation. So let's see what these letters represent. Right? It says that C is the cost in dollars. Okay, so that's like the money. And G is the number of gloves. Right? That makes sense. Right? So, question says, make a table to show the number of pairs of gloves purchased in relation to the total cost. Use 5 values for G. Okay, so we'll make this our G and this our C. Right? There's no X and Y this time. So if you're not sure which one to put on what side, this one is like the input number. Right? So you're going to input the X, out pops the Y. Right? For if I need to know how many pairs of gloves, right, I'm looking at to determine the cost. So when we're picking our X values, right, you can't have negative gloves. That doesn't make sense. Right? You can have 0 gloves, right, and figure out what the cost is that. But this says, make a table of values to show the number of gloves purchased. Yeah, probably wouldn't purchase 0. Right? I'm saying we start with 1 pair. right? And you wouldn't buy one glove. It's not going to have 1.5. So let's say 2, 3, 4, and 5. Right? Looks good. So to figure out the corresponding C value, remember, here we got some space below to do it. Our formula is C equals 5G plus 2. So I want to figure out the corresponding C value if G is 1. Alright, so C equals 5 times 1 is 1 plus 2. C equals 7. So that means it's $7 for one pair of gloves. Okay, why don't you find the corresponding Y values, or C values rather, and check in a minute. Alright, welcome back. So you can see here I filled out my table of values, right? All my rough work is below, and I have a corresponding cost for the number of gloves. Now, B says graph the ordered pairs. So each line is an ordered pair, right? I've got 1 and 7, 2 and 12, 3 and 17, 4 and 22, and then last but not least, 5 and 27. So I already set up my graph below, right? Gloves along the X, cost along the Y. I've picked a good scale for my axes, trying to make it as big and spread out as possible. I'm ready to graph. Right, so gloves are 1, right, and the cost is 7. Right, 2 pairs of gloves cost $12. 3 pairs of gloves cost $17. Whoops. Right, 4 pairs of gloves cost $22. There it goes. And then 5 pairs of gloves, $27. Right. Only thing I'm missing is a title. So something like how much gloves cost. And I write it on top here if there's room, but pretty tight for space. All right, so that takes care of question B. Question C, does the relationship appear linear? Why or why not, right? So the answer is yes, right? Couple reasons, right? The graph is a straight line, but even before I graphed it, right, if I look at that table of values, I'm going up both the X and the Y by equal increments, right? This is plus 1, plus 1, plus 1, right? Plus 1. On the C side, plus 5, right? Plus 5, plus 5, plus 5. So if that's a constant pattern, it's going to be linear. So I'm also going to say pattern, right, in, well, it's not even just a pattern, right? It's got to be the same number. Same number of jumps. Whoops, jumps in C and G. Okay. And are there other possible points between the ones on the graph explained? Big fat no, because you can't buy half a glove, right, or a third of a glove. You can't buy part of a glove, right? It's got to make sense to the context. All right, that's it. So remember, you need to go back and try this question up here. Answer key will be posted, and we'll see you in class. Thanks, bye.